Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since I've posted, but I saw Vikram and I just had to break this down. It was such a different kind of an experience, and I love how Girish Gangadharan has done this cinematography at this kind of a scale. So let's break this down. This is my boy Girish. This is the DP of the film, and I just love this guy's work. So proper stuff. Okay, so this is the first shot, and in this shot we can see that there's a lot of contrast. I think in this whole movie, in the major sequences, Girish Gangadharan has used a lot of high contrast shots that really amplify the scenes and bring them to life rather than keeping that kind of a flat look. They've brought up really good lighting, but in this scene it's just the traditional, just from the top they've got this nice can lighting sort of a thing, a top light. It's really harsh and stuff, and that's lighting this actor here, and they've got like a bunch of practicals as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of mist or fog sort of a situation going on as well, and I think the rest is done in post when they've brought up a bit of green in the shadows, and they have a little bit of a warm kind of key light going on. Okay, this is a really beautiful shot, and this is a classic cinematography kind of a textbook shot. I love how they've done it, because imagine you walk into your room and you don't see these kind of lighting right every day. It's a very heightened lighting. I bet like interior designers are loving this kind of a this lighting right now. So let's break this shot down. I feel like there's a lot of things interesting going on here. First of all, when you take this this blue light is coming from here. There's a lot of blue light going on here, and it's really interesting, and they've just put it up as, and it's not completely blue, it's like this bluish green, again this jade tone that's coming out from the windows. I really love this tone. And then obviously we've got the classic our orange sort of a complementary lighting going on. So this is just fixtures, natural practicals. That's obviously they've exchanged the bulbs inside it with a higher output nice bulb, and they've obviously, these are really high powered lights, bulbs, fixtures on these practicals, and they can obviously, the grip people will obviously change these lights into nice high powered lighting to obviously, otherwise it's not gonna do much in the frame when you're shooting at 800 ISO and stuff like that, or ASA. So this is nice. He's basically painting a picture here, and there's no proper fill or anything going on. It's all dark around these regions. If you can see, it's all dark here as well, and I love how they've done this frame, so it's pretty good. Some shots, like for example when you're shooting a negative character, these kind of shots, when you put that light from the bottom, it's, I think when you look at this, he's looking down and still you can see the eye light coming, and it's like that traditional cinematography those theoretical ones where the villain is always lit from the bottom and creates a scary look on his face. So this is something that's going on in this scene. I feel I'll put up some examples here as well. He's definitely lit up the top as well just a bit, but it's a really strong light source. As you can see in his eye line here, you can see in his eyes, there is this light that's coming from the bottom, and that's really giving him that really negative feel and that villainous kind of lighting that we have been seeing it throughout the years. And when we see someone in this lighting, we know this guy is the bad guy. So it's always important to not copy but steal ideas which kind of create the same sort of emotions or evoke the same kind of emotions in the audience. And it's important that we don't have to change that around, because some things are meant to be used in that same exact way it was meant to be from the beginning. Like shots like these, it just creates a different emotion in us, and how much ever people repeat it, it's still gonna create that kind of an emotion. So that was an interesting shot. Next, so again we've got these shots. What do you guys think of the shot? Like, interestingly, what I felt like is, I felt like our guy, this, the main villain, he has been separated out. He has been separated out from these other guys, and I felt like that's really interesting, because everyone else is really dark and he is the one who stands out. And he, if the people who saw this film, obviously this is also like some really violent scene, and but still the DP is trying to create this emphasis on this character, and it's not such a soft lighting or anything. It's quite harsh this character's whole storyline. It's like a really gritty feel that's coming towards this, and he's really controlled the light as well. He might have used some kind of black wrap or barn doors, and he has really blurred that out onto the actor. and the people in the background, everything else pretty much is just there is not much of an edge light or anything going on here. Maybe a small hint of it, maybe from the top, just to fill it up, but it's pretty much emphasis on the main villain in this whole scene. So that's also interesting to look at. Okay, so this is a really interesting shot. So as you guys can see, he has used those little cutouts thing, or like those, this is like those window blinds look. So either we can actually shoot it off blinds, or the light, obviously we can point it off lights, or we can put an attachment to the lights with a bit of this cutout kind of a shape and just put it in front of the light in an angle, and we can get this exact look. And I think they would have done that as well. I don't know how they've shot it, but obviously that is such a useful technique that we can use in our frame as well, because this whole scene, they are pretty much just lit up just from the front, and then it adds a bit of extra kind of a vibe to this whole thing when it's just coming in those patterns, and it shouldn't be like all flat. Again, bringing in a bit of inconsistency in the frame is very important to make it more naturalistic yet more interesting to look at aesthetically, and just in general it's a vibe, this kind of lighting. So it's always important to try out that kind of stuff as well. So in this shot, it's a really warm and soft look. I haven't seen this look in this whole film. It's quite rare. This scene is very lit up. There's this spotlight going on there on the wall, and here as well, it's something from under is hitting it because the shadows are going this side. We got something there, and it's really interesting. They've lit it up nice, and there's this really strong diffusion going on here on this side of Fahad as well, and this probably there's not much filling onto him on the other side, because I think this one is a bit more of a like a really dynamic and high contrast kind of a scene, and he has used this negative fill by not filling up on the other side, and it's really created a good contrast on this shot, and that's beautiful. Next, we've got this interesting little rain scene. And the thing about rain, I love how rain can, or like just water and that sort of element on the floor, how that works with the environment. Just when you have a scene and if it's looking really flat, just pour some water on the road, and that changes the whole thing, because water adds this new dimension. You get a little bit of shimmering, you get a little bit of glittering, you get a bit of this reflections from every, so that's what's happening here in the scene as well. There's obviously rain, so he has really put up interesting nice little harsh backlights from, so it seemingly starts from here. We can get a bit of that flaring. So there's this really huge source maybe up here, some kind of soft diffusion source, and that's hitting these guys coming in the umbrellas. And the best part about rain is that we get this beautiful little pockets of light that's reflecting and creating a lot of dynamic kind of a look in this. So there is this bright areas, there are these dark areas, and here as well. So it's really interesting to shoot in rain and use these kind of tricks in our next project, and that's really important because that's how you can define yourself. Because if there's no rain in the scene, this whole shot becomes just like a typical other shot, but there are these other interesting factors that come in. It's always important to experiment with different elements and different materials to see how it reacts to the lighting that we have created. Again, when you come into this portion as well, this scene, there's a different vibe going on everywhere, and I love that every sort of a scene has a different, something different to look at. And when you have such high budget films as well, obviously there's not much going on here. This is just a normal practical tube light situation, but obviously it's more high output, and it's giving this sort of a green look, and I love that look. It's really gritty street look. Obviously they've pulled it a bit in correction as well. I love how it's there, and I just had to take this shot just to point out how you can just use any normal lighting, it doesn't matter. But look at this frame, it's such an interesting frame, just silhouettes just walking and all this kind of stuff. You don't have to do some kind of really crazy shoot budget stuff for it. You don't have to have high expensive equipment. You just have to have that beautiful vision of how you want it to look, colors and just intensity of light, where you point the camera at, all that kind of stuff is important. Composition, there's a lot going on. He's nice, and it's going like really symmetrical. They've got this leading lines sort of a thing, and it's all beautiful, and it eventually comes naturally to you when you start shooting. And it's really important to look at these things rather than just equipment and stuff like that. Okay, so this is the one of the most like important scenes there are. This is pretty much the end of the film, and as we see this whole film, as we go on, there is this like the lighting keeps getting more epic, it's more dramatic. And in this shot as well, there's just this nice practical light, and there's this nice strong rim light just on his face, and that's acting as a key at this point. It's a very dramatic light, and this is really ultra soft edge light on his back. You can barely feel it, but it's just to bring out that detail on this side. But look how drastic and edgy this shot is, and this is how you create epic imagery. You just can't take a normal day's inspiration and put that lighting on there. You gotta point some really sharp lights in there, and you gotta control that diffuse lighting. You gotta throw some practicals, you gotta throw some color complementary sort of overall look in there in order to achieve this kind of this mass kind of lighting. So that's really good. Okay, so this is the one of this main epic scenes as well. I love in this whole scene they've brought up these nice police lights on the side, and it's really fun how they've done that. And there's a lot of bokeh coming from these car lights and stuff. They've all put it up there in that exact spot. This is definitely intentional. And then this is not standard, just a sodium vapor type of a street light look on his face that's acting as a key. And then there's this rim light that's coming out from the police lights. I think there are some screen grabs from the making video which shows those lights. Yeah, it's really interesting how even in such a big scene we can use some simple lighting techniques and amplify it a bit and bring more lights to that same basic idea and still create that beautiful image. I love this frame. This frame is pretty much the most epic sort of a frame in this whole film. There's a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of fog here. There's a lot of these practical lighting they've used. These police lights, the headlights of the police car, the police lights, obviously the flashing blue and reds, and look, you can see the streak of light coming out. That means there's a lot of fog in this scene as well. There's a lot going on, a lot of people down here just, and it's really epic. And then we've got our main character just in the middle, nice and symmetrical in the central part of the frame, and that's pretty much it. He's just standing there. It's his world and we're just living in it, a vibe. I love this frame, and amazing cinematography. I love this shot. This is really dramatic. This shot is really epic as well. We also spoke about the other epic shot before, but this one as well, we can see that the fog is so much here now. There's a lot of fog in this frame, and I love how again that same practical lighting that's coming in from the back of these lights, these headlights, and obviously there is a proper light as well hidden somewhere there, and it's coming and hitting as well, edging a bit. And we've got this police lights that's hitting from the back, and it's a vibe. It's just filled with lights, and it's important to fill that space with such beautiful lights and bring that scene to life rather than just shooting it with a flat approach. So it's really important to go crazy in these scenes and not think about continuity or what's the next frame gonna look like. Is it gonna look the same? Or yeah, you just shouldn't be scared about the consistency between the shots. It's important to bring in these crazy dynamic lights because it's all happening so fast and it's edited out really in a fast pace, and so people really don't notice that kind of things. Obviously nowadays people are more vigilant while watching films, but I'm just saying it's important to add that extra spice in there. Okay, so moving on to this shot. So this as well, just like how I spoke before, there are a lot of color contrasts and like these complementary colors going on in this whole film. Sometimes you may not feel it in the first watch, but like when I started analyzing in my second watch, I realized that there are a lot of interesting colors. These lights are not necessarily necessary in a realistic setting. Sometimes they might just use a red light or a green sort of a thing, but they have really went out and lit it up well. This scene has this nice blue edge lighting, probably from a sky panel, RGB, teal, like a really cool edge lighting going on. That's really going on in the background of the scene. And then we've got this nice red in the foreground. So all these guys are being lit up. So obviously there's some kind of a control room scene, and they've got this red going on here, which is interesting. And then obviously if we just point blue light and a red light, it's not going to light up the faces. So obviously RTP has added in a nice soft diffusion, just a normal daylight balance, that brings that kind of almost commercial look to it. Because if you go too extreme with colors, it can look a bit, I don't know, cheap, like it looks a bit extreme. So you need to always tone it down a bit. You might feel really excited when you're seeing it in the small screen or while you're shooting, but when you come and see it on a big screen, which this film is, this is a mass film, and it requires that kind of a screen energy. So when you just blow it up into that 4K whatever big theatrical screen, it's gonna look weird. Colors are really strong kind of colors that kind of affects the whole quality of the overall frame. So you need to be creative with how you light it, but you always need to be a bit subtle as well. You need to think about that when you light it up, because at the end of the day we are shooting a commercial film and we need to light those actors properly, and their emotions should be registered in every scene. So now we move on to this shot. This is also a really interesting shot, I felt, because nothing much is going on in this frame and it's still interesting to look at. These kind of shots are what interests me, honestly. There are a lot of crazy high budget scenes as well in this film, but these small kind of boring scenes, if you will, just generic scenes, just two actors standing in a room, how can a cinematographer change that and create sort of his own touch in it? And when you look at this frame, you can understand the excellence of Girish Gangadharan. It's just a simple frame, but he has really been creative by adding this harsh edge, and he could have just easily just put up this blue tone, like a dark tone with it, and just finish the scene off. But he has gone the extra mile. He has lit up these eyes. As everyone knows, Fahad Fasil is a great actor, and he wanted to bring out his emotions in his eyes, and he has really lit up this portion as well. There's a bit of red coming in as well. If you guys look, there's a bit of red in this portion as well, maybe like a neon kind of a vibe from outside, but it's all subtle, but it's such an interesting frame. And I just want to take the time, and you guys should also take the time to appreciate these kind of scenes, and these are the scenes that will make you a different cinematographer, and this will stand out in your work, because everyone can get gear and stuff like that for the biggest scenes and biggest budgets, but how you used it in these generic scenes, that's what makes you stand out. Okay, so this is the other shot. There's not a big reason why I took this shot, but I felt like it's interesting again. If you notice this shot, there's nothing, like, we can actually realize in this shot that this portion, it looks like a different picture, and the other background is like more dark. So again, Girish Gangadharan is creating emphasis over here in this portion of the frame, and I think that's beautiful, because like he's just creating emphasis where it's required and drawing our eyes to that portion of the frame. Obviously these people have been lit up from the back, like with a bit of edge here, and we can get a bit of edge here and stuff, but when you look at this overall frame, I feel like I'm looking directly here, and that's a beautiful way of lighting up. Normally we can just blow up a whole light just in front of them and put a backlight and like a traditional studio look, but he has gone for something different, and that's interesting. So if we take this scene as well, this one's really interesting. Like, we can obviously, rain is going on in the background. There's not much of a crazy light hitting the actor's face. It's just pretty much kind of like a fill light. So I think he wanted to go a bit dark, because there's already a nice strong key coming from the background when it's raining. It's got that sodium vapor feel, like a street light feel to it, and it's really strong in the background. So he wanted to maybe keep that natural as possible in this scene, but obviously he has filled in a bit of here, maybe from the top or something, from his eye light. We can probably see it's rigged over here, probably somewhere there. But yeah, that's also interesting to see how it has done. There are also like a bit of practicals over here in the back. Might have not been something intentional, but it still adds a bit of character to the scene. This is the last frame of the film, and there's just really subtle kind of lighting going on here. Even though this is an interior scene, there's a lot of people, so I think it's so hard to bring in a lot of light, because it's gonna look different on a lot of these actors. Like, when you point it at one actor, the lighting is gonna look really different from different angles and different perspectives. I think they've shot it like from far, like the lights, they've just put it up a bit farther than usual. They've got like this backlight, this nice edge lighting going on there on these people. We can see the rim lighting, and then there's just this normal standard it's like this sky panel-esque diffused kind of a white light which is hitting on the face here on the other side. That's pretty much it for this shot. Moving on to the next shot. Okay, so this was really one of interesting kind of a scene. Like, I love how he has placed this whole setting. It has such an epic vibe to it. There are a lot of people involved in this scene as well, and I love how there's a lot of contrast between this side and this side. It's as color theory and stuff, there's a lot of color contrast going on here. This side is warm, this side is that orange and teal look, if you will. That is the color theory and stuff like that, complementary colors. So you guys should take a look on that as well. If even in such a wide flat frame, we can bring a bit of dynamic lighting by just using some interesting colors. And it's not like it's filled out in this whole section, but it's just like in these particular portions, and it's like how a painter paints an image, just using those lights in certain areas that are necessary with complementary colors. Moving on to the next shot. Okay, so look at this shot. So in this shot, we've got, usually when we see these kind of scenes, it's always not so interesting how they light it up, but look at how he has used these little tubes, these warm LED tubes, again using color contrast to his advantage. So he has used this orange, and then there's this bit of, it's not a light, but it's a bit of color contrast. There's a bit of green going on here, there's a bit of red, and he has lit it up from the side. The standard key lighting, just with a bit of diffusion, apparently mostly with a bit of diffusion on the edge. But when you see this overall scene, it looks really interesting just because of this whole orange lighting going on there. Because if you take that out, imagine you take that out, this whole scene is just gonna look like any other scene. It's just a bland frame. But adding that extra bit of light and going the extra mile during your pre-production or prepping, during making a storyboard or something, you can try and experiment with these kind of things. Okay, so here again in this investigation room setting, we have seen this kind of lighting quite a lot. There's not much going on here, but yeah, I felt there is a lot of fog in this frame, and they've really created that ambience, and there is a bit of this practical lighting solution going on there. And then this light that's coming up from here, definitely hitting these guys, and it's quite a harsh light, creating a harsh shadow for these people. But it's a really nice scene overall, creates that mood of a proper investigation scene, and that's pretty much what they needed. Okay, so this shot is interesting. I just wanted to point this out because in this frame, there's not much going on in this frame. I felt like in this film there are a lot of nice character intro shots. They have taken out the time to go macro on these people and take some textures and details of their characters, and I really like this, and I just wanted to just put it up here. There's not much going here again. There's just a bit of diffusion. They might have put it really close because it is obviously a close-up macro shot, and then they just wanted to get this sort of a gritty sort of a look, and I think they've done a good job. But I just wanted to point that out, that there are a lot of nice macro shots in this as well, just cutaway B-roll kind of shots as well. Yeah, this one as well, this really interested me, how every scene, like, you know, they need to match that sort of emotion in that scene. And I love how they've done this scene. It's so soft, there's nothing that's distracting in this scene. It's such a tender moment between them, and I love how Girish Gangadharan has lit it up. It's so soft. There's this little nice subtle sunshine, sunset kind of a thing going on there. It's really soft and neutral as well. There's nothing really strong, and there's this nice soft covered light on his face as well, edge, nothing really filling up this side. Not much, at least from what I can see right now. It's all like a really not high contrast, but it's a really tender and nice emotion evoking sort of a scene, and I think it does that job really well. It's nice, and it's really nice to see a cute kind of a shot like this in this whole film, where it's extreme lighting. There's a lot of shots like filled with backlights and police lights, red, blue, neon lights and all that stuff. So there's nice little neutral scenes as well in this film. That's really nice. Okay, what I really loved about this shot is, obviously it's just two talking heads a shot, but what I loved about the shot is this red lamp here. I know that the cinematographer's job is not to distract people from the main talking between these two people, but I just love these small little gems in the frame, just a little bit of dash of color that's doing a lot. As you guys can see in this whole frame, when you look at it, isn't that doing a lot to this whole frame? I love how that just small red practical changes the whole shot. So it's really important. What you guys should take away from here is work with the art department and talk with the props or whatever to bring in that extra magic in your frames. You should always talk about these color schemes and what you have in mind. Even the costumes, it all comes together. If he, imagine he's wearing a green color shirt right now in this, that's gonna really distract the audience as well. But bringing these kind of colors in, and when you use it in the right way, I'm not saying put up like a neon light or something, just something subtle, yet really it goes a long way. Yeah, so I just think that you guys should start experimenting with these things and try bringing in new colors. Okay, so this was nothing great when I saw it first, but then I just saw it the second time and I really loved this, because this part, just look at this red part, and it's a different vibe when you just point a little red light. There is no reason why a red light should be there from somewhere. If you think in a practical sense, where is this red light coming from in a realistic sort of thing? But when you look at it visually, it's adding another dimension in this whole frame. And obviously there's this nice warm key that's coming. You can see here also they're just hitting this faces, and then there's this nice red sort of ambient light. I think they've put it inside and lit it from the bottom, and it's really nice. It's really adding this extra layer into this shot, and I just had to point that out. But nothing else going on, but it's important to take some tricks from these shot. So in this shot, I just wanted to point out, this is a really nice wide shot, and I just wanted to point out that they've used the bolt, that it's that sort of computerized arm we can rig the camera on, and they've done an amazing job. That I love that kind of arm. It's so cool, and it brings such smooth shots, and having it in such high action sort of scenes, it really brings out that action. And I love how they've used this as well in this scene. Obviously the DOP had the high budget as well to use and experiment with these great expensive, I have to say, expensive equipment, and he has put the right use to it, and he has justified the use. It's really amazing how he's put up these shots, and it's just the extra, I don't know, you just have to put in a bit of extra energy, and look how it has turned around this whole scene. Otherwise he could have just gone handheld or something in this scene and taken these shots, but it adds a different vibe when you're on that mechanical arm and stuff like that. I love these. So this is the Moco bot, and obviously this is an alternative to the bolt camera system. You can map the movements, and it's really amazing how this thing is. It's really fast, and it has a lot of payload to it. So we've got this nice whole scene going on here, and we can see the lighting come to life here. We can see everything. There is this diffused lighting source that's really powerful, and it's hitting everyone in the scene. And there's this crane that's going up, and this is possibly like a huge source, soft source, like a moonlight kind of a look, and they're pointing it out, and they're just blasting it directly down to the from top down, and it's a beautiful ambient light. And then they've got this nice blue light from this side as well, which is crazy and interesting. I love it. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I think this whole source, they've taken it up and put it on a crane. That's crazy, by the way. And they've lit it up. They've just literally just lit this whole thing up, so it literally lights up this whole scene at night and brings this ambience. And this is what big budget does to you. You can use these resources and not be scared to go out there and shoot these kind of high volume scenes, and you need this kind of stuff, and don't be afraid to ask for these resources. And it's really important. It creates a big difference on the day of the shoot. So love this kind of lighting. So again, yeah, in this film they've used a lot of these nice dolly shots and proper high budget stuff, and nice telephotos, nice zooms. And obviously this is the Arri Alexa LF. He's got a viewfinder and a monitor together. That's crazy. And yeah, I love that. So yeah, this is the whole setup. So this was interesting actually. There's one scene, I think they've literally built up a whole like a spider cam track situation, and this is mounted onto a, I think like a Ronin, like a proper gimbal. And I think this is a crazy idea. I love this. I think they've never done this kind of stuff like in a while, and I think this is really interesting how this kind of stuff usually only happens in these really mass films, and I love how there is a lot of freedom for the DPs to get that kind of gear that will make their job easier. I love it. Okay, so another camera movement that has been like literally predominant in this whole film are steady cams, and we just have to appreciate the steady cam operator. I love this whole film how they've done the steady cam operations, and these guys have been probably been in the industry for years, and I just wanted to take this frame out and appreciate these people as well. They've done a great job of just capturing those moments, high action moments and stuff like that. We need that steady cam there, and that's really important. So amazing. Nah, it's nothing. This is again a crazy piece of equipment. This is a jib on a dolly, and so there's this dolly track that's here, and they've got this jib arm with obviously a gimbal attached to it. That's the most Frankenstein 2022 setup I've ever seen, with a proper gimbal and nice little jib there with a track. That's such a crazy expensive piece of gear, and unless you really need it, it's pretty much the most like crazy equipment I've seen, and I love this kind of. Okay, so this is again, this is as you can notice, this is not the Arri Alexa. Most of you would have known by now. This is the Phantom camera. So this is the slow motion camera, and it shoots like crazy frame rates, like what, 20k and 100k frames and stuff like that. It's no biggie for this camera, so I just wanted to point out they've put that as well here. Nice zoom and stuff, and proper setup. I love it. He used a nice Phantom as well. Crazy. What else have we got here? What else? Again, we can see this Alexa on this nice handheld rig. I thought this was interesting and cool little setup with the Teradex that gives out the output to the wireless monitors as well for the director's monitor. We got the battery, got a bunch of SDI and stuff. Nice. Lot of nice stuff going on here. Nice gear. That's probably an Arri Alexa on Signature Prime. Beautiful stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys liked the video. Literally, most of you who ever watch my videos, come on guys, I take a lot of time to make these videos, and it would be really amazing if you just like, share and subscribe to the channel. I just want you guys to support me, and I know it's been a while, but I'll try my best to keep posting. And put down in the comments what do you guys want next, what next movie should I break down. And yeah, I hope you guys loved it. Catch you in the next one, guys.